You found your way to whispers of history where the past tiptoes in quietly just as you're starting to drift. Tonight's tale will carry you across the icy stillness of the Arctic, where grandmothers knew the wind by name and raised generations with lullabies written in snow. You're not here to study. You're here to listen, to float, to let history melt into your thoughts like warm breath in a frozen tent. This episode is called The Inuit Grandmas Who Taught Snow Etiquette with Lullabies. It's a slow walk through stories carved by wind and whispered through sealskin walls. You'll learn something, probably. But more likely, you'll be asleep before we finish your first tea ration. So be gentle with yourself. Press like if this brings you peace. Leave a comment with your location and the local time. Let's see how far across the globe this quiet journey reaches. And if you're still awake later, you might even subscribe. We'll be right here with more whispers. Now let's ease into tonight's journey. You wake up under a roof made of snow. Not metaphorical snow. Actual, packed, sculpted snow, shaped into a dome so perfect you can feel the curve of the world above you. A single oil lamp flickers beside your cot, just enough flame to see your breath curl in the air like a sleepy ghost doing tai chi. As outside, the sky is doing its usual polar thing, some combination of and white with the occasional cameo by a very confused sun. Your boots are beside you, still crusted with last night's sled tracks, and your parka smells faintly of smoked blubber and wind. Someone hums nearby, a woman's voice, old but strong. She sings in Inuktitut, and though you don't know the words, the rhythm tells you this isn't just a lullaby. It's a lesson about how to walk when the snow is whispering, how to listen for ice that has changed its mind about being solid. That's the thing about snow in these parts. It has moods, textures, even manners. There's crust snow that crunches like burnt toast, fresh powder that sighs underfoot, and slab ice that echoes when you walk on it, like you're stepping on the frozen belly of the earth itself. The grandmas know them all by feel. One of them hands you a bowl. Sealed broth, rich and salty, you sip carefully, too fast and you'll fog up your own eyelashes. It's these small acts, how you hold the bowl, how you pass the ladle, that the elders watch most closely, not to judge, just to see if you've remembered the etiquette of cold. Major historical fact: the Inuit have over 50 words for snow, no joke, though scholars debate the exact number and definitions. But what's more impressive isn't just the words, it's the worldview behind them. A culture built around noticing details, surviving by paying attention, thriving by cooperating in silence. The weird cultural tidbit: in some Inuit communities, lullabies weren't just bedtime songs. They were early education tools, teaching kids not to laugh at ice cracks, not to whistle at the aurora, it's rude, and definitely not to ignore your grandmother when she tells you to check your socks for ice fleas. As outside, a dog barks once, not twice, just once, which is enough to send someone reaching for a spear. You don't ask questions, you pull on your boots, grab your mittens, and step into the wind like it's an old friend who sometimes yells. And yet you feel oddly at peace, like the world is hushed just for you, like the snow approves of your quiet footsteps. You probably won't make it through this day, not because of any danger, but because it's just so comfortably uneventful, which is exactly how the grandmothers like it. You step outside and everything is muffled. Even your own heartbeat feels like it's wearing snowshoes. The world is so white it makes your teeth ache a little just to look at it. But it's not just white, is it? There's blue in the drifts in the sky, a suspiciously yellow patch near the sled dogs that you politely avoid. The village isn't much, 5 or 6 igloos arranged like sleepy turtles huddled against the wind. One smoke hole puffs gently. Another is frozen shut. Nobody's in a hurry, because being in a hurry in this place is how you end up needing to be rescued by your own cousin, who will never let you live it down. You walk past a pile of fish, half buried in snow, frozen into something between food and sculpture. A kid runs by, chasing a plastic bag like it's a kite, laughing in that breathless way kids do when the cold steals half their air. His grandmother watches from a stool carved out of packed ice, sipping hot tea from a tin can with floral print worn smooth by generations of hands. She waves you over. You sit beside her and she immediately starts quizzing you. Not with words, Inuit grandmas quiz with their eyes. She gestures toward a line of boot prints in the snow and asks you silently, who walked here, how long ago, were they limping or just dramatic? You squint, you guess, she squints harder. You guess again. Eventually, she nods in that deeply disappointed but slightly proud way that grandmothers everywhere have perfected. Major historical fact: the Inuit developed a complex oral tradition. Entire survival manuals were passed down as songs, chants, and bedtime tales. There were no written how-to guides for fixing a broken sled runner or navigating by the shape of wind carved, just memory and melody. The weird cultural tidbit: some lullabies included mock insults. Yes, insults like calling your baby a lazy seal or blubber belly in the most loving tone possible. The idea: to toughen them up while still rocking them to sleep. Inuit parenting, half warmth, half emotional boot camp. The grandma beside you hums a verse. It sounds like a melody, but it's actually instructions for tying a sinew knot tight enough that it won't slip when the wind screams. You hum back a bit off-key, and she chuckles like you just stepped on a hidden patch of social ice. Historians still debate whether these lullabies evolved solely from necessity or whether they served a deeper spiritual purpose, carrying the voices of ancestors through each verse. But one thing is certain: no one ignored Grandma's lullaby twice. At least not unless they enjoyed spending the night locked outside to listen to the stars. You glance up. The sky is doing its slow shimmer now, sun-dog halos forming like half-rings of fire around the low light. The dogs yawn, the fish don't move. The snow is still deciding if it wants to stay soft or betray you with ice. And somewhere across this whiteness, another lullaby rises. Not for sleep, but for memory, for guidance. For every rule that's never written down but deeply, permanently known. Now you adjust your hood, the wind shifts, and you walk on. You walk across snow so fine and dry it squeaks beneath your boots. Not crunches, squeaks. like the snow is gossiping in falsetto about your poor walking form. The Inuit even have a name for that kind of snow. The soft, airy stuff that hides between crusts and makes dragging a sled feel like pulling a cousin through mashed potatoes. The wind has taken a break. For now, you can hear your own breath, the distant groan of shifting sea ice, and somewhere behind you, the unmistakable sound of a grandma clearing her throat. You pause, turn. She's standing at the edge of her igloo with one eyebrow raised so high it might actually be generating its own weather system. Well, you forgot your hood strings again. She says nothing, just points. You tie them properly this time. Because up here, frostbite isn't a melodrama, it's a Wednesday. And grandmas have zero patience for people who ignore their own ears. There's a rhythm to how the elders move in this place. Efficient, minimal. Like they know exactly how many steps it takes to carve a snow knife or gut a fish without drama. They don't hurry, but they always arrive before you. She motions for you to follow her, and so you do. Past a half-frozen seal skin drying on a frame. Past a pair of mittens drying on a stick. Past the sled dogs, who glance at you with the sort of judgment only creatures forced to drag your belongings are entitled to give. Major historical fact: Inuit sled dogs weren't just transport animals, they were survival partners, bred for endurance, instinct, and the ability to smell thin ice under a foot of snow. A good dog could save your life. A bad one, well, there weren't many bad ones left. A weird cultural tidbit. In traditional communities, it was believed that you shouldn't praise a puppy too much out loud. The spirit of the dog might get arrogant. Instead, you'd insult it sweetly. Stupid thing, you'll never lead a sled team. Then boom, leader by spring. The grandma leads you to a small slope just beyond the camp. She gestures to a series of ridges in the snow, like tiny waves frozen mid-thought. You kneel, you listen. The wind was here, she finally says in English tinted with centuries, but only for a short visit. Then she points at a patch of smooth snow. Here is silence. You stare, squint, trying to see what she sees. But she doesn't need you to see it. She just wants you to know that it's there, that silence has a shape and the snow remembers it. Historians still debate whether snow etching, the act of reading stories in snowdrifts, was learned behavior or intuitive knowledge passed down subconsciously. The grandmothers will tell you it's both. That memory lives in the body as well as in the stories. She looks at you satisfied, not because you understood, but because you tried. Then she turns and walks back, humming under her breath. Not a lullaby this time, more like a warning or maybe a joke. You follow slowly, like someone trying not to wake a sleeping landscape. Back in the village, everyone is quietly busy, like a town full of people pretending they're not in a survival drama every single day. A man carves a harpoon tip with all the patience of someone sharpening history. Two kids play tag in slow motion because the cold has dialed down time itself. Somewhere, water is melting over a blubber stove, smelling faintly of seaweed and secrets. You're invited into another igloo, this one larger, communal. The inside is dim but soft and filled with the quiet crackle of rendered oil burning gently in a stone lamp. The heat is modest, but after being outside, it feels like a tropical vacation with a suspiciously fishy scent. The four women sit around a half-circle of tools and pelts. Their fingers move fast, sewing boots, patching tents, knotting rope. They talk in that low, rhythmic murmur shared by people who worked side by side for decades. The words roll over you like snow against a tent wall, soft, insistent, oddly comforting. While you sit, you try not to interrupt the flow of the day. You watch, you learn. Major historical fact: traditional Inuit clothing, made from caribou, seal, and even bird skin, was so well designed it inspired polar explorers. Double-layered parkas. Waterproof seams sealed with sinew. Hoods lined with fur angled to catch your breath before it froze your face off. A weird cultural tidbit: some baby parkas had tiny pouches sewn into the back, not for supplies but for hiding spirit helpers. That's right. Little spirit along for protection and guidance. Like the Arctic's version of a spiritual baby. The women laugh at something in Inuktitut. Then one leans over and, in English, tells you they're joking about your mitten stitching. You look down, it's not terrible, but it's also vaguely mitten adjacent. They offer to show you again, this time slower. One pulls out a needle made of bone. Another pats the fur, showing you the direction it wants to be sewn. You're not just making a glove, you're making an argument with the wind. The goal is not fashion, it's survival and comfort if there's time. Historians still debate whether sewing circles like these were primarily social or educational. But anyone who's been to one knows they were both. Gossip, grief, instruction, and inherited knowledge, all stitched into a single piece of seal skin. One of the women starts to hum. It's the lullaby again, but softer this time, slower. You realize it's a song about falling into and staying there. On purpose. It tells you how to lay still so your heat stays close, how to breathe shallow, how to listen for the dogs, how to keep one hand above the just in case. It's a lullaby about survival, and yet sung like a love song to the earth. You close your eyes for a moment, just one. The oil lamp hums beside you. The stitching sounds like soft applause. The snow outside presses gently against the walls as if listening in. And you drift between snow, between centuries, between a lesson and a dream. It's late afternoon now, though the sky doesn't exactly agree. The light shifts more in tone than brightness, like someone dimmed the contrast on the whole world. You step outside the communal igloo and the cold greets you again, but not unkindly. It's more like a roommate who doesn't speak but still sets the kettle when you look tired. The snowflakes drift down, slow and sparse, like they're taking a smoke break on their way to settling. You hold out your glove. One lands on your finger, a perfect six-pointed star so delicate you're afraid to breathe. It melts anyway. You wander back toward the dogs who are napping in the most undignified positions imaginable. One's got a paw flopped over its own face like it's seen too much. Another is curled so tightly into its own tail you can't tell which end is which. You kneel to pet one gently and it opens a single eye. Judging, always judging. A little boy is sitting nearby, stacking small rocks into a circle. He looks about 6. His cheeks are so red from the cold it's like he's wearing blush from a makeup artist who doesn't believe in subtlety. He doesn't look up, just points to the stones. "A wind game," he says. You nod like you understand, you don't. But you sit down anyway and he begins to explain. The game is simple. You set the rocks upright as tall as you can and wait to see which one falls first when the wind returns. The lesson: don't build things too tall. And don't be surprised when the wind knocks over what you love. It's not personal, it's just weather. Major historical fact: the Inuit developed early forms of weather forecasting by watching the shape of clouds, the way snow stuck to rocks, and the behavior of animals. A dog packing at night, incoming storm. A ring around the moon, bundle up. A grandma staring silently into the distance for more than 5 minutes. You're not going hunting today. The weird cultural tidbit: some families believed in wind spirits who played tricks on people, hiding tools, flipping sleds, or tangling lines. If your day was going terribly, it was often blamed on a mischievous gust with a grudge. The remedy: a brief scolding spoken directly into the air. That's enough now. And sometimes it worked. The boy finishes his rock circle. He stares at the sky like it owes him an answer. Then, just as silently as he arrived, he walks off, leaving you with his game, his patience, and a lesson he didn't know he was teaching. Historians still debate whether these childhood games were designed to teach survival skills, or if they simply grew out of necessity. Quiet ways to pass long hours in a world with no screens, no plastic toys, and no chance of going inside just because you're bored. You remain seated, watching the snow darken slightly as clouds thicken above. The wind does come back eventually, it always does, and when it arrives it doesn't scream its sighs, long and low. The first stone falls, then the second. You smile, not because the game is over, but because you finally understand it. Night doesn't fall here, it leans. It leans gently against the edge of the day like a tired elder pausing before a long tale. You can't tell exactly when it begins, but suddenly everything is blue. Not sad blue, ceremonial blue. Like the whole world has been wrapped in soft velvet and asked to whisper. You return to the elder's igloo, the first one. The one with the lullaby that started this slow drift into memory. She's there, of course, sitting on a rolled seal skin, sipping something that smells like broth but tastes like history. You enter, stomp the snow from your boots, and sit across from her. No words, not yet. Words take time to warm up in this kind of cold. Eventually, she begins to speak, not to you exactly, but to the past. Her voice is low, gravelly, and calm, like ice slowly forming on a still lake. She speaks of a time when the ice was thicker, when the animals were more plentiful, when her grandmother could smell a storm 2 days away and say things like, "That wind has too many teeth." She speaks of loss too, but only lightly, as if even grief must tread carefully in her presence. A cousin taken by thin ice, a brother who drifted too far, a story sung once then swallowed by snow. She pulls out an object from a pouch, a small carved figure, smooth and bone white. It's a human-shaped stone marker, except this one fits in the palm of her hand. For the inside, she says, to guide your thoughts. Major historical fact: there was a navigational marker used across the Arctic, placed by Inuit travelers to signal directions, hunting grounds, dangers, or meeting places. They were literal signposts in a land without roads or written maps. The weird cultural tidbit: some believed that a poorly made could mislead the spirits, or worse, attract the attention of things you didn't want following you. So even a casual stack of rocks was treated with quiet respect and maybe a whispered apology. The grandma hands it to you, not to keep, just to hold. It's smooth, cold, and impossibly light. It's not magical, but it feels like it could be. Historians still debate whether miniature Inuit like this were meant for rituals, for teaching, or simply as personal tokens. Some claim they were offerings to ancestors. Others say they were mnemonic devices, physical reminders of journeys taken or decisions made. The truth: it's all of those things or none. You return the figure. She wraps it again, as carefully as if it were bone china in a world made entirely of snow and silence. She begins humming again. The lullaby, the same one, but this time you understand the words, or maybe just the meaning behind them. It's about warmth, about listening, about the kind of love that doesn't hug you but hands you a knife and shows you how to survive. You lie back on the sleeping mat, the oil lamp flickers. Outside, the wind swirls not violently but curiously. The snow doesn't fall in flakes now, it dances in spirals, like it's remembering something it almost forgot. Then slowly, as the song settles into your bones and the air thickens with breath and memory, you drift again. Though this time not into dreams, but into story, into the snow, into the lullaby. You wake before the sun does. Or maybe the sun's just being shy again, hovering just below the horizon like it hasn't decided whether to bother today. The sky is a gentle blue, stretched like wool, and the only thing louder than the wind is the sound of a kettle beginning to boil. The grandmother's igloo is already stirring. She's up naturally, has been for hours. Grandmothers have this secret pact with time: it obeys them, not the other way around. She's gutting a fish, neatly, without looking. Like her hands are remembering something her eyes no longer need to see. The knife glides through flesh as if it were made for this moment, and honestly it was. You offer to help. She gives you a look, not annoyed, just skeptical. Like a baker watching someone try to knead dough with a fork. Still, she hands you a smaller fish, one lesson at a time. You sit beside her, copying her motions. Slower, clumsier, occasionally tragic. At one point, a fish heart flies into your lap and she simply laughs, this gravelly, musical sound that somehow makes the moment feel like a shared joke between friends who've seen worse. Major historical fact: traditional Inuit diets were almost entirely animal-based, rich in fish, seal, whale, and caribou. Despite the absence of fruits or vegetables, scurvy was rare. The secret, raw meat, especially liver, provided enough vitamin C. That's right, sushi for survival. The weird cultural tidbit. When elders offered raw seal liver to children, they'd often smear it on the kids' cheeks first to wake up the taste. Modern science hasn't confirmed the nutritional necessity of that step, but the grandmothers swear by it. The fish is cleaned. The guts go to the dogs. Nothing is wasted. Every part of this world is used, honored, or returned, because waste is something only the rich and foolish can afford. You step outside to stretch your legs. The snow crunches with that satisfying brittle texture, like walking on a million tiny sugar cubes. In the distance, two boys are practicing with harpoons. Wooden shafts tipped with carved bone flying through the air toward a target. Each throw carries not just weight but memory of every hand before theirs that ever hunted in these winds. You watch quietly. One boy lands his shot, the other misses and curses under his breath. The grandmother appears beside you. That one, she nods, will be better. You raise an eyebrow. He missed, but he watched the snow. Historians still debate whether Inuit youth training was more formalized or simply observational. But the elders insist the answer is simple. You learn by living. The test is tomorrow. The lesson is today. The teacher is the weather. She hands you a piece of frozen fish wrapped in skin. Breakfast, she says. It tastes like cold salt and old wisdom, and you eat every bite. You spend the morning traveling with her. Not far, just over a ridge and down toward the sea ice, where the wind is wilder and the horizon stretches into a blur of silver and white. She's walking faster than you'd expect for someone her age. But then again, her knees have known this snow longer than you've known your own name. She pauses often, not from tiredness but to point, a crack in the ice, a bird track, the way the snow slants at a certain angle. This one tells us something, she murmurs. It says, wait a little longer. You nod, pretending you understand, but you really don't. Still, she keeps talking. Not because you ask, but because the stories need to be told, even if only to the wind. She tells you of a cousin who once misread the sky and built camp too close to the water. Woke up floating, she says. Never saw someone paddle a tent so fast. She tells you of a seal that gave itself up to a starving family during a blizzard, dragging itself onto the shore weak and alone. Some say it was the spirit of an ancestor, she shrugs. Some say the seal was just old. Either way, we gave thanks. Major historical fact: the Inuit held complex beliefs about animism, the idea that every creature, object, and natural force had a spirit. Hunting was a spiritual exchange, not conquest. Hunters would speak aloud to seals or whales before and after the hunt, offering gratitude, not dominance. The weird cultural tidbit: if a hunter failed too many times in a row, it was believed he might have offended the spirit of the animal. The solution: He'd be ritually washed, sometimes with snow, sometimes with smoke, sometimes by being scolded thoroughly by a grandmother. The scolding was universally the worst. You sit beside her on a low ridge watching the ice below. The tide has frozen in waves, motion trapped mid-motion, like the sea was running late to its own schedule. She begins to sing, not a lullaby this time. This one is older, rougher. A song about ice and names and the way a sled dog whines before a storm. And then she tells you this. There are two snows, she says, one that falls and one that remembers. While you wait for her to explain, she doesn't. Historians still debate whether Inuit oral traditions contain encoded weather records, centuries of climate memory passed down through stories and songs. Some believe they do. Others say the details are too poetic to be useful. But maybe that's the point. Maybe poetry is how you remember what the science hasn't measured yet. The wind picks up again, brushing snow across your boots. Not harsh, just present, like a hand nudging your shoulder to remind you not to forget this day. Oh, she stands. Well, we go back now, she says. Oh, is the sky ready, you ask. Oh, she smiles, the wind says yes. And so you walk together, side by side, through a land that isn't empty at all, but filled with music and memory and old, soft snow that knows your name. You arrive back at the village in time for quiet, not a specific event, but a moment everyone agrees to without saying a word. No tools scrape, no dogs bark, no one speaks above a whisper. It's not a rule exactly. It's just a shared pause, like the whole camp is holding its breath so the wind can speak. The grandmother sits on a low snow stool beside her igloo. You sit beside her, legs stretched out, hands warm inside your mittens. She doesn't look at you. She just watches the horizon like it's telling her a story with no need for subtitles. Somewhere nearby, someone begins to drum, not loudly. A hand drum, the kind made of stretched skin and wood bent by fire. It pulses slow and steady like the heartbeat of the land itself. Thump, thump, thump. Another voice joins in. A throat singer, low guttural sounds rippling like ice cracking beneath your feet. It doesn't sound like music. It sounds like memory. Like time warming its hands near a fire. You listen. Major historical fact, throat singing was traditionally performed by Inuit women, often as a form of friendly competition. They'd stand face to face, exchanging rhythmic sounds until one laughed, ran out of breath, or lost the beat. It wasn't a performance. It was a game. A song you played with your lungs and your history. A weird cultural tidbit, some elders believed that the best throat singers could mimic the spirits of animals. A seal spirit sounded deep and choked. A caribou spirit had short, sharp bursts. If you nailed the sound perfectly, it meant the animal would return to you in the hunt. Like karaoke, but cosmic. The grandmother doesn't join in, but you can see her foot tapping softly, barely shifting the snow. Her breath puffs out in tiny clouds. You glance over. Her eyes are closed. Oh, do you remember your first song? You ask. As she opens one eye, you never remember your first, only the one that followed you. You sit in silence, not sure what that means, but certain it means something. The drum stops, the throat singing fades. Someone stirs a pot over a small stove and the hiss of boiling meat takes over the air. Historians still debate whether music played a central role in daily Inuit life or if it was more ceremonial. But perhaps it's a false divide. When your entire life is tuned to the wind and the ice, rhythm isn't performance, it's survival. Breath, movement, memory, they're all songs. The grandmother leans back. "Oh, that wind you heard," she says. "Oh, yes. Oh, it was asking a question. Tonight we answer." And you nod because you're learning the rhythm of this world. Its way of speaking in slow riddles and silent truths. The evening meal is shared indoors again beneath a gently sloping snow roof. There are 6 of you this time, 3 elders, 2 children, and you, somewhere in between trying to belong. There's caribou stew, thick and fragrant, served in battered metal bowls that have probably outlived 3 generations of spoons. A baby squeals with laughter. An old man grumbles about snow that doesn't crunch like it used to, and the grandmother smirks into her ladle. The walls of the igloo glow orange from the oil lamp. Soft shadows flicker like old memories, faces leaning in, eyes catching the light, hands passing food without needing to ask. You eat slowly. It's not about being full here. It's about being warm, being still, being seen. Major historical fact: communal meals were and still are a cornerstone of Inuit culture. Food isn't just nourishment, it's story sharing, power balancing. A moment when everything unnecessary melts away and what's left is connection, served hot and salty in a bowl passed clockwise. A weird cultural tidbit: in some communities, the best cut of meat always went to the quietest person at the table. Not because they were shy, but because silence was seen as strength. Loudness could scare the snow gods, or at least annoy the cook. The conversation flows slowly, like soup cooling in the cold. Someone tells a story about a fox who outsmarted a hunter. Another elder corrects the story's ending. The first laughs and says, "Maybe you're right, maybe I dreamed it that way." Well, then the grandmother speaks. "One time I followed a snow owl across the tundra. As everyone turns, even the children freeze mid-slurp. It flew straight against the wind. I followed its path step by step until I reached the ridge. Below was a hole in the ice. A seal had just surfaced. You wait for more." "Oh, that night," she says, "we ate." The story ends there. No moral, no flourish. Just a simple line between survival and instinct traced by feathers and boots. Historians still debate whether animal behavior was studied intentionally or absorbed through generations of imitation. But the elders insist, if you watch long enough, the land will show you where to step. The trick is watching without needing it too much. You finish your stew, the baby falls asleep on someone's lap. The oil lamp flickers lower. And before anyone says it, you feel it. It's time. As everyone rises, slowly, calmly, the snow outside welcomes you again with its open, soundless arms. The stars are waking now, shy and small, not blinking, watching. The grandmother points toward the horizons. And tonight, she says, you'll learn how to follow the cold. You look at her uncertain. She grins, all gums and warmth. Don't worry, it's not fast. Cold has manners. She hands you a fur-lined hood. Someone else offers mittens. And then, bundled and blinking, you step into the blue-black hush of the Arctic night, ready to follow a lesson written in frost and footfalls. The snow beneath your boots is crusty now, hardened from the day's light and the cold's insistence. You step carefully, not out of fear but respect. Walking here feels less like locomotion and more like conversation, with each footfall a question and each crunch an answer whispered back by the earth. The grandmother walks ahead of you. She doesn't use a stick, doesn't need to. Her balance comes from years of walking on snow as if it were her second skin. You notice how her feet angle slightly inward, not a flaw but an adaptation. A way to keep close to the ground, to feel the snow's shifts before they become surprises. You follow. Your group is quiet, 6 of you, bundled silhouettes moving across the white like soft shadows looking for a home. The dogs are with you, tails low, ears high. They know this walk. They've done it in storms, in silence, and once during an aurora so bright it made the snow blush green. Tonight the sky is soft. No moon, just starlight spilling down like powdered sugar. You look up and feel small but not lost. More like you've been gently folded into a much larger map. Major historical fact: the Inuit were and still are expert navigators. Long before GPS, they moved confidently across ice, using snowdrifts, wind direction, pressure ridges, and the stars. Some elders could locate themselves within a few hundred meters using only cloud shapes and the scent of the sea. The weird cultural tidbit: it's said that some hunters could hear the direction of home by placing a mitten over one ear and listening to the wind through the other. If the wind sounded wrong, they adjusted course. No one knows if it's science or magic. Most likely, both. Your feet begin to ache in a distant way, like your toes are writing poems you won't get to read until you sit down. But you keep walking. Because tonight's lesson isn't in words, it's in repetition, in endurance, in the slow arrival at meaning. Eventually, you reach the ridge. Below it, the sea ice stretches out flat and endless, like glass that's learned how to hold its breath. You pause, so does everyone else. The grandmother points to the horizon. There, she says, that's where my mother taught me. You squint, there's nothing there, just snow, ice, and shadow. But she isn't pointing at a place. She's pointing at a memory. And you begin to understand that sometimes the land is just a backdrop for the stories that survive it. You all sit in a semicircle on rolled mats of fur and hide. Someone passes around a flask. It's hot, smells like berries and salt. You sip carefully, and the warmth slides into your chest like a secret finally shared. The silence thickens, not heavy, just full. like the night is listening too. Though the grandmother pulls her hood down and begins to speak. It was this cold, she says. This kind of cold that doesn't touch you all at once, but sneaks in slowly through stories you forget to tell. Her voice is low, meant for people who know how to listen. She tells you of a night decades ago when her sister got lost on the ice. Not far, just far enough. The wind shifted, the sky blurred, and her tracks vanished like spilled milk on a white table. As everyone panicked except their grandmother, who simply waited. She's listening, the old woman had said. Let her listen. 2 hours later, the sister returned. Not because she found the way, but because she remembered a lullaby. She followed the song back, your grandmother says now, one verse at a time. Major historical fact: Inuit songs often carried more than emotion. They contained directional cues, climate warnings, even migration patterns. Some verses were literal, turn east after the red hill. Others were symbolic. The fox only circles where food was left behind. A weird cultural tidbit: some lullabies were disguised maps only fully understood by those who'd walked the journey. Outsiders heard poetry. Insiders heard coordinates. Imagine singing your GPS directions to a baby and they actually worked. The stars above seem brighter now, closer. You wonder if the people here ever looked at constellations the way others did. Then you remember you were told once that stars aren't points of light here. They're friends, sentinels, relatives watching from the next story over. The grandmother hums again, but this time it's not the same lullaby. This one is sharper, older, less melodic. A chant maybe. A call and response with no response, just the wind stirring slightly like it's trying to remember the words. Now you sit in that circle for a long time, no one speaks. No one needs to. Because here, silence isn't empty. It's full of warnings, of gratitude, of the shape of every grandmother's voice still echoing across the ice, stitched into snow, whispered by children who think they're just playing. Historians still debate whether these night rituals were ceremonies or just habits of survival. Some insist they were coded teachings passed between generations. Others call them the Arctic's version of bedtime prayers. But the people who live them, they call it what it is. Remembering it. Now you close your eyes, the snow creaks faintly beneath you. The wind circles once, then drifts away. You are held by the quiet, by the cold, by the story that doesn't end, just loops gently around the fire again. The walk home is even slower than the walk out, not because you're tired, though you are, but because something about the night has changed. It's not darker, just deeper. The kind of night that feels like it's waiting for you to say something wise before it lets you sleep. You follow behind the grandmother, your footsteps overlapping hers. She doesn't speak, doesn't need to. Her parka rustles softly with each step, seal skin brushed smooth by decades. Her breath rises in tiny clouds, then disappears. No trail, no trace. The sea ice behind you creaks once, loud like it's settling in for the evening. The sound shoots up your spine and rests behind your eyes. No one flinches, not even the dogs. Out here, the world speaks in cracks and echoes. You learn not to overreact. You learn to listen and keep walking. You pass a cairn made of ice blocks. Not a full, this one is smaller, off the path. Just 3 stones, carefully balanced. You pause. "Oh, what's that one mean?" you ask quietly. The grandmother glances over her shoulder. "It says, someone stopped here and they're not coming back." You nod, keep walking. Major historical fact: not all Inukshuit were wayfinders. Some marked burial sites. Some were memorials for missing people. Others were warnings, silent indicators that something sacred, dangerous, or heartbreaking had occurred there. The land was the library, and each stone was a bookmark. The weird cultural tidbit: when someone passed away unexpectedly, their spirit was believed to wander unless anchored properly. One tradition: whisper their name into the snow and press your hand flat over it, holding the soul down until it could find its way. A burial of breath and intention. You reach the ridge again. The lights of the village shimmer softly through the distance, flickering like tired eyes blinking against the wind. The smell of cooked meat carries far out here, mixed with the scent of lamp oil and the faintest trace of cedar bark tucked into someone's boot. Though the grandmother finally speaks. "Do you know how to build a snow shelter?" she asks. "An igloo." Oh, she smirks. "An igloo is for show. I'm asking if you know how to build safety." And with that, she walks a few paces off the trail, kneels, and begins to dig. You join her. It's not the majestic dome you imagined. No beautiful curves. No snow blocks carved with ceremonial precision. This is rough work, scraping out a trench, piling snow with gloved hands, then cutting small notches to stop airflow. Inside, it's barely enough room to curl up. But once you're inside, you feel it, the air stills, the wind quiets. And for the first time in hours, your eyelashes stop icing over. "You build this when you're lost," she says from the entrance, her face a silhouette in the opening. "Not to be found, just to stay until you remember which way home is." Historians still debate how many of these survival shelters were taught through formal lessons versus improvised in the moment. But ask any elder and they'll tell you the same thing: you don't build shelter from skill, you build it from fear and practice. Preferably in that order. She hands you a small candle. Light it, don't sleep yet, just listen. You sit inside the snow womb, surrounded by white, warmed by the thinnest flame and the thinnest story of your own breath. Outside, the world continues its cold conversations. But here, for now, you're safe. Not because you know everything, but because you're learning how to listen. In the morning, though morning is generous, since the sun only peeks over the horizon like it's considering a comeback, you help dig yourself out of the snow shelter. Not because it collapsed, just because snow drifts are opportunistic and curious, like toddlers or taxes. The air is sharper than before. Not just cold, but angular, like it might slice through your sleeve if you move too fast. You blink frost from your eyelashes and stretch your fingers slowly inside your mittens. They protest with a few crisp cracks like small bones negotiating rent. The grandmother is already up, of course. She's boiling water over a lamp made of stone, and this time she's singing while working. A light, bouncing melody, playful, almost mischievous, like she knows a secret the wind hasn't figured out yet. Now you listen and then you realize it's a warning song. So she's singing about a bear. Not a bear near you, but a bear someone else saw in another village 3 days ago. The song has traveled like gossip on a breeze, passed from singer to singer until it's arrived here, curled into a cooking pot and wrapped around the steam. Major historical fact: Inuit oral communication networks often passed vital information faster than written letters. Songs, chants, and gossip lines could stretch across vast distances, bringing news of game migrations, weather shifts, and danger. Entire villages adjusted plans based on a verse hummed by a visitor. Weird cultural tidbit: the songs were often encoded with inside jokes, nicknames, or local phrases. Outsiders might hear the bear by the tree, but locals would know that tree actually meant a frozen hill with a caribou carcass nearby. Translation: watch your step, he's guarding food. You eat quickly, frozen fish sliced thin like glass, dipped in seal oil that sticks to your lips like memory. Then you join the others for the morning chores. The kids are feeding the dogs, chopping frozen meat, tossing slabs to the ground, laughing when one dog sneezes dramatically and refuses to eat until someone wipes the snow off its meal. Spoiled, the kids mutter, but they're smiling, and they still wipe it. You help mend a sled harness, threading sinew through holes drilled into thick hide. The rope hums as you pull it tight, twangy, like a low string on a snowbound instrument. The grandmother watches you silently pleased. She's not grading your work, she's reading your hands, whether they're tentative, whether they pause, whether you finish even when no one's watching. Historians still debate whether gender roles in traditional Inuit society were rigid or flexible. Some say women led inside, men outside. Others say survival didn't leave room for such rules. The elders say it like this: whoever's warmest cooks, whoever's strongest pulls, whoever knows the story tells it. You finish the last knot and stretch. The wind picks up again, lifting loose snow into a slow spiral. The light bounces through it, not glowing exactly, just softening, like the day itself is whispering, almost there, keep going. Though the grandmother hands you a strip of dried meat and points to the ridge. We walk again. You glance around, you thought the day would be spent here. She sees your hesitation and shrugs. The land is moving, we follow. And so you gather your gear, you sling your pack. You check your mittens and tie your hood tight. And together, grandmother, dogs, snow, and song, you follow the path that isn't marked, the sky that doesn't explain itself, and the lessons that are always moving just ahead of you. Well, the journey today feels different. Not harder, not colder, just heavier. As if the snow has remembered something and you're walking across it before it changes its mind. The sky is slate gray now, the kind of gray that doesn't look down on you, just folds around everything like a tired blanket. No sharp wind, no soft sun, just you, the grandmother, and a world holding its breath. The dogs are quiet. Tails low, ears flicking, moving in that practiced trot that speaks of thousands of miles walked without needing permission. You pass a line of low hills. Snow drifts against them like sleepy waves frozen mid-surge. The grandmother stops at one and taps the side gently with her mitten. "Oh, this one remembers," she says. You kneel beside her. Beneath the snow, hidden in the slight rise, is a structure, low, rounded, sealed with packed snow but different from an igloo. Older, smoother. She brushes it off carefully, her breath steady. She says, "before we built with blocks, we shaped the snow like pottery. Rounded, not stacked. We slept lower, closer to the earth. The body warms better near the belly of the snow." Major historical fact. Is an older style of winter shelter, made by excavating downward into packed snow and covering the roof with animal skins or additional layers of snow. It was often temporary, used by traveling hunters or entire families during migration. The weird cultural tidbit. Some families believed that if a melted before spring, it meant someone had spoken too proudly during the build. Modesty, even in construction, was considered part of survival. Snow likes humility. She invites you to help dig it out. Not completely, just enough to peer inside to let the air from yesterday mix with today. The scent is musty, old ice and old smoke, a smell of memory, of breath caught in fabric and never quite released. While you sit by the opening, she sits beside you. "No one lives here now," she says, "but we don't forget the ones who did. That's why we visit, even if just for a moment." She presses her palm flat against the snow wall and you do the same. It's not warm, but it isn't cold either, just still. You rest there for a while, watching the wind shape a small drift against the side. The snow begins erasing your footprints as soon as you step away, like a gentle hand brushing crumbs from a storybook. Historians still debate how often old structures were revisited, or if it's a modern ritual born of nostalgia. But the elders say it plain: you go back because they stayed there, and you're not done listening yet. You walk on. The grandmother hums, but not a lullaby. This one is a numbing song. You don't recognize the names. They aren't for you. But she sings them anyway, slow and careful, like she's counting. At one point she stops. She points to a cluster of rocks half buried in snow. That one was, she says, died before her second winter, but she had a laugh that made even the soup boil faster. While you keep walking, she sings again. The names are still there. Oh, even if the people are not. By midday, if you can call this gray wash of a sky day, you reach a small outpost, 3 structures. One built of driftwood lashed with bone, one made of sod and snow, and one newer built with tarps and a fuel drum. A strange triangle of time, each shelter speaking a different century. As a man steps out from the middle one, he's older but not ancient. His parka is stitched with patches, each one a story. A wolf embroidered on the sleeve, a sled dog on the back. A fish stitched upside down on the chest, for reasons you're sure he'd explain if you asked nicely. He grunts a hello, the grandmother grunts back. And just like that, your family. You're invited in for tea, or at least the Arctic version of it. It smells like spruce needles and something slightly medicinal. You sip, and it tastes like melted candle wax and pine smoke. You don't ask questions, you drink. Major historical fact: many remote Inuit camps created semi-permanent outposts along migration routes. These were used seasonally for hunting, tool repair, and weather shelter. Trade, especially post-contact, began here, with passing visitors exchanging meat, stories, tools, or cloth. The weird cultural tidbit: some camps had joke posts, small snowmen, or carved driftwood figures placed along routes to trick visitors into thinking a person was standing watch. They were often made in the shape of nosy relatives or notorious gossips, just for fun. One elder once claimed her uncle flirted with one by mistake. She never let him forget it. Inside the driftwood house, the walls are covered with tools. Not displayed, just there. Hanging from pegs. Bone knives, gut needles, a small round drum wrapped in seal skin, a fish spear with barbs that still shine from oil. The man speaks little, but when he does, his voice is warm. Like whale fat, slow to melt, but it stays with you. He tells you a story about his grandfather's sled, not the fastest sled, not the prettiest, but it never broke. Even when the river tried to eat it, he says. How, you ask? He smiles, the wood knew the water. You look puzzled. The grandmother nods. Driftwood is clever, it's already lost its fear of drowning. You sip more tea, the air inside is thick with calm. The man offers you something wrapped in fur. A bone pendant shaped like a bird in flight. He doesn't say why, just presses it into your palm. Historians still debate whether these charms were purely symbolic or used for navigation or spiritual protection. Some believe they were tools, ways to barter with nature itself. Others think they were bookmarks in stories too fragile to write down. You tie it around your neck. Not for luck, but because something in this moment asks to be carried. Though the grandmother stands. We go now, she says, and the man nods. No farewell, just recognition. As you leave, you look back once. The driftwood house remains still. The snow leans against its sides like an old dog. And above, in the gray sky, a single bird passes overhead, flying low and slow, as if it, too, is remembering something. Though the storm doesn't arrive all at once. It announces itself the way cold arguments do, quietly, with a change in tone. First, the wind becomes thoughtful. Then the dogs grow still. One lifts its head, ears high, sniffing the air like a connoisseur detecting something not quite right in a vintage stew. Though the grandmother stops mid-step, doesn't turn, doesn't speak, just lets the wind pass across her cheek. Well then, she says it. So we don't walk anymore today. So you don't argue, you just nod and start unpacking the sled. It's not panic, it's preparation. A dance everyone knows. Even the dogs begin to curl up into themselves, noses tucked to tails, ready to become small, shaggy snowdrifts until the sky changes its mind. You set the tent with the others, a low dome of hide and tarp held down with snow blocks and silent agreement. The kind of structure that doesn't scream for shelter but gently insists, here, you're allowed to be warm. Inside, there are no floors, only furs. No furniture, only posture. You sit. The grandmother sits. Another elder who met you on the trail earlier and said nothing sits and still says nothing. Then the wind changes pitch. Not a whistle, not a scream. Just the long, hollow exhale of a continent deciding to shake its shoulders. Major historical fact: Inuit storm shelters weren't just protection, they were pause chambers, places not only to survive but to listen. Elders used these moments to teach, correct, remind. You don't waste a storm, you wait inside it with attention. The weird cultural tidbit: some elders say a storm is the land trying to forget. That it swirls and scrapes not to attack but to clear its memory. And so, to honor that, people inside stay silent, at least for a while, giving the world space to grieve. You sit for hours without speaking. The wind scours the outside of the shelter like it's sanding a confession into the wall. Inside, the heat from the stove melts just enough of the cold to let your fingers feel again. Well, then the grandmother begins to speak. No, not a lesson, a story. It starts, as many do, with hunger. A long time ago, when the sea forgot to send fish, and the wind wouldn't speak. You listen. She tells of a family who had only one dried seal flipper left to eat, and how the mother, too proud to divide it, ground it into powder so each child thought they'd received equal weight. The trick: she never tasted any herself. But her daughter, the grandmother says, eyes half closed, snuck her a piece, tucked into the corner of her mitten. That's how the storm ended. Blanca. That's how. She gave the wind something to carry, the grandmother says. Kindness echoes farther than meat. You look around. The tent is dim, the stove crackling low. The storm outside rages, impatient and white, but in here the air is still held. Historians still debate whether these stories were allegorical or rooted in real famine events, but they always served the same purpose: keep people warm with the sound of breath. Teach without lifting a finger. Prepare a child for suffering with a tale that ends in survival. And so you stay inside the storm. And it listens to you as much as you listen to it. Now the second day of the storm is heavier. As outside, snow falls sideways. Not down, not gentle. It's impatient now, scratching at seams, piling against the tent like it's trying to remember what shape it used to be. Inside, the grandmother sharpens a needle. not because she needs to sew, but because hands need purpose or they wander. You do small tasks, melt ice for water, check the sled lines, feed the dogs, everything slow, everything quiet. Until the singing starts. It's not the grandmother this time. It's the silent elder, the one who hadn't said a word until now. He sings without ceremony, no preamble, just opens his mouth and lets the melody rise like smoke through cracked silence. It's low, a descending line of notes, repetitive, hypnotic, the kind of tune you could walk to for hours without realizing your feet had kept time. The grandmother joins on the second pass, her voice softer, older, wrapping around his. Then you understand it's a walking song, a journey song meant for movement, for keeping rhythm when visibility is gone, for reminding your legs what your eyes have forgotten. Major historical fact: Inuit walking songs were essential in whiteout conditions. Sung aloud, sometimes in unison, they kept hunting parties together. The tone wasn't always mournful, sometimes it was humorous, but always it carried far. A weird cultural tidbit: some families personalized their songs with names. Instead of step, step, right, left, the lyrics might be "Zboots, don't get lost." A blend of humor, instruction, and reassurance sung into the frost. Though the song ends, silence returns, softer this time, as if the storm has stepped outside to listen. You make tea from melted snow and dried herbs packed tight in a pouch. It smells like the inside of an old cedar box. You sip it slowly, letting the warmth settle between your ribs. Though the elder finally speaks, not to you but to the tent. When I was small, I got lost in a storm like this. Too far from camp, wind screaming, snow blind, I started singing my father's song. "Are you awake?" I thought I heard him answer. He pauses, but it was my own echo. You expect sadness, but he smiles. That was enough. The grandmother chuckles. Better to talk to yourself than to freeze with manners. Historians still debate how much of oral Inuit storytelling was adaptive behavior versus inherited ritual. But the line between the two is thin, blurred by necessity, sharpened by affection. The storm howls louder now. It doesn't like being ignored. You zip your coat, the stove flickers. And outside, the world is chaos. Inside is lullaby. Inside is rhythm and tea, and the warm echo of a name carried through snow. And somewhere in that stillness, you fall asleep not because you are tired, but because the world, for now, no longer needs your help. When you wake, the storm is quieter. Not gone, just breathing slower. The tent walls no longer tremble. The wind has softened from accusation to conversation. And somewhere outside, a dog barks once as if to say, "We're still here." You sit up slowly, wrapped in pelts and the last traces of your dreams. It takes a moment to remember where you are, another to remember why, but you don't speak. No one does, not yet. The grandmother is already awake, she's sipping broth. Steam curls from her cup like soft threads stitching the morning back together. The elder is sharpening a knife, his strokes steady and thoughtful, as if each scrape is a thank you to the tool for surviving the night. You rise, push open the flap. As outside, the world has turned blue again. Not dark, not cold, just blue. That peculiar polar blue that only comes after snow stops falling and before light remembers how to be yellow. Though the snow is everywhere, as far as your eyes can reach, it's smooth, untouched, unburdened, as if the storm wasn't an attack but a reset. You step out and sink knee-deep in powder. It holds you gently, like the land saying, "Careful now, I just made this." Major historical fact. After storms, Inuit travelers used wind compass cues to orient themselves. Snow dunes form with specific angles to prevailing wind. A traveler could read these like Braille, mapping direction by shape alone. A weird cultural tidbit. Some say that if you press your ear to fresh snow after a storm, you can hear the land breathing. Not metaphorically. Literally, the tiny shifts of temperature, the subtle settling of crystals, like a continent exhaling beneath your cheek. You kneel, try it. The cold bites your ear, but you hold still. And maybe, just maybe, you do hear it. A soft crackle like distant fire, a pulse in the silence. You close your eyes. Behind you, the grandmother hums something. Not a song, a tone, a drone. You stand and she nods, not at you but at the snow. And now we walk, she says, but not forward. You frown, where's then? She turns slowly. Back. You don't question, you just follow. The path back isn't the same paths. It looks similar, sure. The same sky, the same dog team, the same grandmother up ahead moving like time itself, patient, unbending, and somehow older than you remembered. But the land is new. Even though you've passed it before, it feels like it's been rearranged in your absence. As if the storm was not just weather but editor. The wind no longer stings. It's curious now. It rustles against your parka like fingers flipping pages. A gust brushes your cheek, pauses there, and moves on, as if searching for something in your expression. You crest a ridge. Below that. The grandmother gestures and you approach it again. But this time something changed. Though the entrance has been half filled with snow, it sags a little, as if tired. You kneel beside it, brush the snow away gently. She kneels too and presses a small item into your hand, a carved figurine no bigger than your thumb. It's shaped like a human, but barely. No face, no arms, just suggestion. I'll leave it here, she says. Wise. So the remembers you. You place it just inside the entrance. The snow shifts slightly, settling around it. Major historical fact: small tokens, spirit figures were often left in shelters near traps or at the sites of important decisions. They weren't. They were witnesses. reminders that actions leave marks even when footprints fade. A weird cultural tidbit. In some families, these tokens were whispered to before being left behind. A single sentence, a secret, something you wanted the snow to hold for you. Are you lying in clothes? I'll say something. You're not even sure what until it's already left your lips. A name, a hope, a memory of warmth from long ago. You rise, the grandmother looks at you, unreadable. Then she turns and walks. You don't ask where to, the question doesn't matter anymore. Because the walk back is not return, it's recognition. Everything around you is the same. Everything inside you is not. The elder catches up with you. His breath curls in the air like ink dropped into waters. He nods at the grandmothers. And she wanted you to see what it looks like when a place holds memory. You walk in silence. Then he adds, most people don't stay long enough to notice. You look around. The light is rising now, shy and sideways, casting long, soft shadows across the snow. It glows at the edges like the land has been lit from beneath. Everything is still but expectant. The dogs pull ahead, their breaths steaming like smoke signals. The grandmother begins singing again, something slow, low, and wide, like a lullaby taught to the horizon. And you walk with her, not away from the storms, but deeper into the quiet it left behind. By late afternoon, though again, afternoon is a term the Arctic barely acknowledges, the grandmother veers off the sled path and starts walking across a flatter expanse of snow. Not a trail, not a shortcut, just space. You follow because that's what you do now. You don't ask where. You just read her footsteps like scripture. The elder lags behind, tending to the dogs whose energy has shifted from wary to relaxed. Their ears are down, their tails swing lazily. Even they seem to understand something about this snow is sacred. Eventually, you reach a clearing, an absence within an absence. Snow here is smoother, deeper, untouched. It looks like a blank page, but the grandmother kneels and places her hands upon it like a priest opening an ancient text. This is where they gather, she whispers. You pause. Who? She looks up, eyes sharp and soft all at once. The ones who walked before. She motions for you to sit. You do, no questions. Just the crunch of your weight settling into the earth's memory. She begins to draw in the snow. Not pictures, not letters, just lines, long, spiraling, intersecting at odd angles. At first you think it's random. But soon you see it, paths, trails, routes between rivers, curves that match coastlines, a map, but not of now. This is the old land, she says, her mitten gliding over the drifts. When ice was stronger and we walked farther, when the people moved like animals, not like names. Major historical fact: Inuit oral tradition included memory maps, landscapes carried not on paper but in stories, hand gestures, and ritual drawings in snow or sand. These maps weren't static. They shifted with the weather, the hunt, the spirit of the season. Navigation wasn't coordinates, it was connection. The weird cultural tidbit. Some families claimed that snow, when marked with sacred intention, could hold a route for up to 3 days. Elders would trace a journey before sleep and return to find the lines still there, preserved like the land was agreeing. Yes, I remember this too. Though the grandmother hums a tune you don't recognize. She closes her eyes and then begins to speak, but not to you. She speaks names into the air, slowly, reverently, one every few breaths. Each name is a step, a drumbeat, a thread in a much older song. You look around. There's no one here. And yet something is. The wind stills, even your breath feels louder. You hear the snow shifting, not under your feet, but as if it were listening. The names hang in the air like warm mist that refuses to fade. Historians still debate the function of these name rituals. Were they memorials, communion, roll call for spirits? Some argue it was a way to ensure the dead were never lost in the white. Others say it was a reminder to the living, these names shaped you, speak them or forget yourself. The grandmother finishes. Then she takes the heel of her hand and wipes the snow clear, erasing the lines in one smooth motion. Gone, she says. You frown. But why erase it? She looks at you and shrugs. They already know the way. You sit beside her in silence for a long time, until the elder arrives with hot tea and a look that says, you saw something. You don't answer aloud, but your eyes do. That night they let you sleep outside. Not because the tent is full, not because you asked. Because it's time. You curl into your bedroll beneath a sky so vast it feels like it's folding inward. The stars pulse gently, not in brilliance, but in patience. Like they're waiting for the wind to finish its story before they speak. And then it happens. The sky moves. Not clouds, not wind. Light. The northern lights arrive slowly, like a whisper entering a quiet room. Green at first, soft ribbons unraveling across blackness. Then blue, then pink. Then deep amber curling around the edges like the earth itself is glowing from within. You sit up. You're not alone, sis. The grandmother is there, so is the elder. And the dogs, some awake, some staring upward, some quietly howling as if singing along with the color. Don't point, she says gently, it's rude. You tuck your hand beneath your blankets. Major historical fact. The aurora has long held spiritual significance in Inuit cultures. Some believed it was the spirits of ancestors dancing. Others said it was a bridge to the afterlife. And some, especially children, were told that if they whistled at it, it would swoop down and take them. The weird cultural tidbit. To protect against aurora spirits, some elders tied small bone charms around a child's ankles, so the spirits wouldn't mistake them for the dead and carry them off. The charms made no sound, but the belief made plenty of noise in the heart. The grandmother sings again, so softly you barely hear her over the snow's own hush. Though this song is not for walking, not for surviving, not even for remembering. Though this one is for being. It doesn't rise or fall, it drifts. A single note stretched thin. Like light itself has learned a melody. The aurora flickers brighter, then begins to dance, not frantically but playfully. A slow waltz of color over the curve of the world. You feel yourself dissolve. Not literally, but something inside you, some tight, hard-walled thing softens, opens, like your breath has finally found room to stretch. The elder leans closer. There are places we go with our feet, he says, and others we go with our eyes. He gestures to the sky. And sometimes we're allowed to go with both. You don't speak, you couldn't if you tried. The air is too full of light. The snow too quiet to interrupt. And you are just here. Not hunting, not walking, not surviving. Just here. And somehow that is everything. By morning, the sky has peeled itself open. The thin clouds wander like half-formed thoughts across the pale pink-blue dome. Everything glows with a kind of exhausted beauty, like a candle that's burned all night and refuses to go out just yet. The snow sparkles, not in a romantic fairy tale way, but in the quiet, persistent language of ice crystals doing what they were made to do. You rise slowly, not because you're sore, though you are, but because part of you doesn't want to move. There's a softness in the air now, a hush that isn't silence but safety. The dogs stretch. The grandmother is already up, holding something small in her mittened hands. You approach. She's brushing crushed herbs into a shallow wooden bowl. You recognize spruce. A few flakes of dried lichen, something that smells like memory or medicine. She sprinkles water into the mix and begins to mash it with a stone. No rush. No explanation. What is it, you ask? Warmth, she replies, but for the inside. She pulls out a strip of cloth and begins spreading the mixture along its length. You frown, a poultice. She smiles, a story. Major historical fact. Inuit traditional medicine relied on plant knowledge gathered over generations, not only for treating illness, but for easing grief, for calming minds. Even in a land where green is rare, healing grows. The weird cultural tidbit: some grandmothers believed that illness came not just from the body, but from dreams that had lost their shape. To heal someone, they would wrap the feet, not the head, so the dream could travel back down and escape. She kneels before you, wraps the cloth gently around your ankle. There, now the dream can live, she says, but only if you let it. You laugh quietly, not mockingly. I thought it was just a bruise. And everything is just a bruise, she replies, until you stop walking. You sit beside her. The warmth of the poultice seeps in slowly like sunrise through thick cloud. She begins humming again. Not a song this time, just a tune. A rhythm, a kind of auditory threading needle pulling one moment to the next. She doesn't tell you the melody's name. She just lets it hang in the air like a question you haven't earned the answer to yet. Historians still debate how many of these songs had medical purpose versus psychological comfort. But even the skeptics agree there are kinds of healing that don't live in pills or stitches, only in rhythm, only in warmth, only in being seen. You stay wrapped in the cloth for a long while, even after the mixture cools. Not because you still need it, but because you're not ready to say goodbye to the hands that placed it there. Though the day passes in small things. You help clean the sleds, scraping off packed ice, oiling the wood. You sort dog food into tidy piles. You gather twigs for the fire, even though you know they're only ceremonial here. True heat comes from fat and snow walls. But it's not about the chores. It's about the rhythm, the way the day folds itself neatly into slow repetitions. As at one point the grandmother asks you to hold out your hand. You do. She presses a tooth into your palms. It's smooth, polished. Whale tooth, you think, carved into a shape, not a fish, not a person, just a curve. Well, what is it, you ask? Oh, something to carry, she says. You raise your eyebrows. And in case you forget who you are, she adds. Major historical fact. Inuit amulets and carvings were often worn or carried not as jewelry, but as reminders of place, of people, of obligation. Each one was deeply personal, passed down or created during times of transition. The weird cultural tidbit: if a young person complained of being lost in the head, an elder might tie an amulet to their belt, not to ward off evil but to anchor them. It was believed that spirits of confusion didn't fear charms, but they respected boundaries. You hold the tooth in your hand for a long while. Its weight is gentle, humble, but you feel something, a tug. As if the tooth remembers something about you that you haven't quite caught up to yet. That evening, the sky stays light longer than expected. Not because the sun returns, but because the air is so clear it glows. Though the elder sits with you by the edge of the camp, he's whittling something, a small bird. And every shape is already inside the bone, he says. You just have to take the wrong parts away. You nod slowly. Then you ask, how do you know what's the wrong part? He doesn't look up. You don't, he says, not at first. You sit in silence, watching the little bird emerge from a shapeless piece of ivory. Not because you want to carve your own, but because it reminds you that maybe people are carved too. Over time, by wind, by words, by waiting. The grandmother appears just before nightfall with a bowl of stew. She hands it to you wordlessly. It tastes of seal, root, salt, and something you can't place. Something ancient, not a flavor but a feeling. You finish it slowly. then sit in the stillness that follows a hot meal in a cold place. Though the elder speaks again softly. Tomorrow we walk one more times. Well, where to, you ask? He looks to the horizon. Where there waitings? You look at the grandmothers. She nods once. And that night, before you sleep, she presses her hand to your forehead. Not in blessing, not in checking. Just long enough to remind you. You're here. You're whole. And you belong. You rise before the light shifts. Not because someone wakes you, but because the land does. There's a tone to the air today. Low, still. Like the snow is humming just beneath the surface, too quiet for the wind to notice, but loud enough to stir your bones. The grandmother is already waiting by the sled. Her silhouette framed in slow-moving breath and the outline of her hood rimmed with frost and time. She hands you a strip of dried meat and says only, for walking. The dogs are quiet but alert. Their tails swish like pendulums, not in excitement but alignment. Even they understand this journey isn't about where you're going, it's about how you arrive. Now the elder loads the sled in silence. No commands, no fuss, just rhythm. So then the three of you begin walking. No trail. No destination offered. Just snow. And the soft guidance of old feet stepping forward. You walk for hours without a word. The sound of boots on crusted snow becomes hypnotic. A soft crunch, a pause, then another crunch. Your breath falls in with the pattern like an old song with no chorus, just verses that hum through the lungs. Major historical fact: pilgrimage isn't a word often used in Inuit history, but that's what this is. A journey of reverence. Some routes, like those to ancestral hunting grounds, were walked not for food but for memory. Entire families would return not to harvest, but to greet the place that once sustained them. Weird cultural tidbit: there are stories of listening spots, unmarked hollows in the land where sound traveled in strange ways. Elders said that if you sat still long enough in those places, you could hear the ice thinking. Young children were brought there to learn patience. And to understand silence wasn't empty, it was crowded. Eventually, the grandmother raises her hand. You stop. The ground beneath you is ordinary, flat, snow-covered. But she kneels and begins to brush it away, not with urgency, but with the same tenderness you'd use brushing hair from a sleeping child's face. And slowly, a shape begins to emerge. A ring of stones. A perfectly round, buried just beneath the snow. You kneel beside her. The elder begins building a fire, not for heat but for presence. A small one, smokeless, just enough to offer the land a sign that you've arrived in peace. This is where they waited, she says softly. Waited for what, you whisper? For everything. You sit back on your heels. And you understand. This isn't a grave. It's a memory circle. A place carved into the land, not to mark what was lost, but to preserve what still echoes. She opens her pouch and takes out a handful of crushed leaves, bones, bits of fur, and one very old, very smooth tooth. She scatters them in the circle. Well then, sits, and begins to sing. Her voice barely rises above the fire's flicker. Oh, but it's enough. Oh, it's not a performance. Oh, it's an invitation. One long note held steady, then another. A descending line that loops back on itself as if the melody is circling the stones the way wind circles a tent, never intruding, always present. You sit inside the ring, and you begin to feel it. Not cold, not warmth, just welcome. And as if the stones have been waiting for you, not as a traveler but as a witness. The elder joins the song not with words but with the low, rhythmic thump of his hand on the snow. Not a drum, just pressure. The weight of his palm and history syncing with the beat of something older than either of you. Major historical fact: Inuit, like their Australian counterparts, weren't just melodies. They were maps, histories, warnings, rituals. Each note corresponded with memory. Singing was how you remembered where a storm killed a hunter, where a child was born in spring, where an ancestor saw the sun fall for the last time. A weird cultural tidbit: certain songs were only sung once a year and only at certain places. If sung elsewhere or too soon, they were believed to confuse the land. Songs weren't entertainment. They were instructions to the spirit of the snow. Here is who I am, please let me pass. Though the song continues for a long time. You don't know how long. The time melts here. You don't know all the words, but you know what they mean. Though the grandmother stops singing. She reaches into her pocket and hands you a small stone. Not carved, not marked. Just a smooth black pebble. You look at her puzzled. She smiles. Oh, it's yours. Oh, what does it mean? She tilts her head. What do you mean? You turn the stone in your fingers. It's cool but not cold. Heavier than it looks. She leans in, touches your shoulder. Oh, you brought something here, she says. I didn't bring anything, you reply. She nods exactly. You sit in silence, watching the fire burn down to red memory. Though the elder stands, brushes snow off his knees. Then he says, this place will remember you now. The grandmother scatters one final pinch of herbs into the flame, and the scent rises, pine, salt, and something sweet. A smell you've never known but suddenly miss. You leave the stone ring without looking back. Not out of rudeness, but because looking forward is now a promise. And the snow behind you has already whispered your name. The path back is quieter than the one that brought you. Not because the wind has calmed, not because your boots make less noise, but because you are quieter now, inside. It's a silence you didn't know you were carrying. A silence that comes not from emptiness but from fullness. Like someone finally poured enough meaning into you that everything noisy just settled. The snow crunches, the sled glides. The dogs move with casual grace, tails wagging in small arcs, ears turned slightly inward like they're listening to something deep underground. The grandmother walks behind you now. You didn't notice at first, but at some point she stopped leading and started watching. Letting you choose the pace, the line. Letting you show her whether you remember the snow's instructions. You glance back at her. She nods. Not encouragement, not approval. Just a presence. Major historical fact. In traditional Inuit teaching, there was no final test, no moment where an elder said, "You have learned." Instead, they'd stop correcting, stop guiding, and begin following. That was the signal. You didn't pass, you simply became. A weird cultural tidbit. Some elders believed your own shadow could tell if you were ready. If it moved like you still had work to do. If it seemed to move first, just ahead of your steps, that meant the ancestors had begun to trust you. While you stop near a drift, there pressed into the snow is a faint curve. This circle, the place you've visited, already half covered again, as if the land is protective of its sacred things, or maybe shy. Either way, it remembers. The grandmother steps beside you. She doesn't say anything for a while, then, you were quiet in the right places. You nod, unsure if that's praise or just observation. She continues. Most people think knowledge is what you carry home, but sometimes it's what you leave behind. You look at her, her face unreadable beneath the folds of fur and frost. I left something. She taps your chest, only the noise. You breathe in, the air is sharp, but it doesn't bite anymore, it just brings you back. The elder calls from ahead, he's already preparing camp. One last night in the open, tomorrow the village. You kneel, press your hand into the snow where the circle once was. Not hard, just enough to say, I was here, and now I am not the same. The last night in the open is the yet. There is no wind, no lights in the sky, no songs, just a fire low and steady. You sit beside it, legs tucked under layers of hide. The elder carves a new figure from bone. This one looks like a small fish, mouth open, eyes closed. You suspect it's for you, though he hasn't said a word about it. The grandmother is wrapping something in cloth. Her hands move slowly, deliberately, as though this task isn't for now, but for someone far in the future. You sip tea, the kind she makes only on certain nights. It tastes of herbs and ash with a note of something like dried fruit, but fainter, like memory steeped in water. Then she speaks. Not gently, not softly, just clearly. You don't tell them everything. You return. Who? The ones who ask where you went, what you saw. You wait. You don't lie, but you don't explain. Because if they haven't walked it, the story will slip through their hands like melted snow. You nod slowly. But what do I tell them? She stirs the fire with a stick. Embers bloom like tiny eyes blinking at the stars. You say, I learned how to listen when everything was quiet. You let the sentence settle. She adds. And if they ask again, you tell them the sky moved, and you didn't run. Major historical fact, many Arctic oral traditions include the idea of untranslatable knowledge. Lessons you can only understand through experience, not because they're mystical, but because they require weather. Cold, time, failure, repeat, words alone won't carry them. The weird cultural tidbit. In some families, returning from a long journey meant you had to sit in silence at the edge of the village for one night before entering your home. Not as punishment, but to give your thoughts time to arrive fully. The body comes home fast. The spirit, it lingers. While you stare into the fire, your thoughts are like snow now, slow, settling, quiet, but shaped. The grandmother reaches into her pouch and hands you something small and warm. It's the stone she gave you at the circle. But it's changed. Wrapped in hide, a thin red thread tied around it. A single feather tucked into the knots. You give this, she says, but only when someone really needs it. You look at her, the fire crackles between you. How will I know? She shrugs. You'll feel there's snow. You sleep that night with the bundle tucked beneath your coat. And for the first time in this entire journey, you dream of nothing. Not because there's nothing left to dream, but because some dreams are too quiet to speak. And they are already listening. The village appears slowly. Not all at once like a city skyline, but in pieces. A plume of smoke, a line of tethered dogs, a woman brushing snow from a roof with a broom made of willow and seal twine, children chasing a scrap of cloth caught in the wind, yelling and laughing in the same breath, a life resuming. You stand on a low ridge above it, the grandmother beside you, the elder behind. No one speaks, you just watch. It's not nostalgia, it's not arrival. It's recognition. Like seeing your own reflection in a pool that's finally still. Then she speaks. They won't ask the right questions. You nod, expecting it now. They'll ask, was it cold? Did it snow? Did you see a bear? You smile, probably. She looks at you, serious. And what will you say? You think, then you say softly. I'll say yes, but not the kind of cold you measure. Major historical fact. Returning from journeys in Inuit communities was never marked by grand fanfare. The deeper the journey, the fewer the words. A hunter returning after many days might say nothing for hours, until someone passed him a cup of broth and sat beside him in silence. That was the welcome. The weird cultural tidbit. Sometimes the youngest child in the village would be the first to speak to the returning traveler. Not because they were chosen, but because they were the only ones unafraid to ask what everyone else was thinking. Did it change you? And the answer, if any, was always for the child. You begin the descent into the village. No one rushes to greet you, but eyes follow, heads nod. A grandmother by the fire lowers her kettle just slightly. A boy stops throwing snowballs. You're not a stranger, but you're no longer entirely familiar either. You help unload the sleds, stroke the dogs, brush snow from your parka. You do the tasks. And still people watch. No, not with suspicion. With curiosity, the kind reserved for people who gone somewhere old. You sit on an overturned crate by a stove sipping soup made by someone else. She doesn't ask where you've been, she doesn't ask at all. Just refills your bowl without speaking. And that somehow feels more like love than any welcome banner ever could. You feel the stone in your pocket, the one wrapped in hide, feather tucked close. It's warm against your leg. Waiting. The first night back, you don't sleep inside. Now they offered, of course, blankets, beds, a cot by the fire. But you walk outside after dinner, past the dogs, past the sleds, past the glow of oil lamps behind stretched hide windows. And you sit alone at the edge of the village. The snow crunches softly beneath you. You watch your breath in the air like it's trying to leave and return at the same time. And then a small shadow approaches. It's the youngest child, the one who ran with the windy-tossed cloths. He doesn't say anything at first, just sits beside you, kicking his feet in the snow. Then, as if asking the sky, not you, did it change you? You nod. Then shake your head. Then say, yes, but I don't know how yet. He pulls a rock from his pocket, holds it up. It's plain, smooth. This one is mine, he says. I've had it since I was 4 winters. You smile, it's a good one. He looks at yours, still hidden. Do you have one too? You hesitate, then gently untie the pouch. Open the hide. Let him see the dark, rounded stone, the red thread, the feather so still it could be asleep. His eyes widen. What does it do? You look at the horizons. It waits. For what? For someone who needs it. He tilts his head. How will you know? You smile. You'll see there's snow. Major historical fact, many Inuit believed children were the closest to spirit, not because of innocence, but because they still remembered things adults had forgotten. Children were often the first to be told stories because their ears were still tuned to older frequencies. The weird cultural tidbit: if a child asked a question an elder couldn't answer, the elder didn't respond with dismissal. Instead, they'd say, "That answer is walking still." a phrase that meant it hasn't arrived yet, but one day it will. Children learned to wait for truths like they waited for snow. The boy leans against your shoulder. Though the stars above are quiet, though the snow doesn't fall, oh, it simply accepts you. Though the boy whispers, did the sky really move? Oh, you close your eyes. Oh, yes, you whisper back, but I didn't run. Oh, he falls asleep beside you. And you sit there a while longer. A stone in your lap. Snow beneath you. Dreams circling above in the form of stars. And for the first time in your life, you understand. Some stories are told so they can end. But others, they are told so you never forget the way back to yourself. And in the days that follow, life resumes. The fish are dried, tools are sharpened, mittens are lost and found again, bobbies cry, dogs bark. Soup is made and forgotten on fires that burn too long. And yet everything feels quieter. Though not in sound, in intention. You walk slower, you listen more, you speak less, not because you've become shy, but because you've realized how few words are needed when your presence has already spoken. The children start following you. Not all at once. First just one, then two, then a trail of them trailing after you like snowflakes that haven't decided where to land. Though they don't ask big questions, not yet, they ask small ones. Well, why do your boots sound different? Did the stone really come from the sky? Do you still hear it? You answer only what you need to. One afternoon you kneel to mend a sled strap, and a girl sits beside you. She doesn't say anything. Just slides off her glove and presses her bare hand to the snow. Then looks at you. Do you think it knows me yet? You look at the snow. And answer honestly. Maybe, but it's still listening. Major historical fact. In Inuit tradition, children were rarely scolded for asking too many questions. Instead, they were encouraged to observe quietly until the answer revealed itself through experience. The best learners weren't the ones who remembered the most. They were the ones who noticed first. Weird cultural tidbit. Some elders believed each child was born with a snow pattern and invisible trail that could only be revealed by walking alone in certain storms. When the path matched the memory of an ancestor, the child was said to carry their soul forward. That night you walk to the edge of the village again, the same crate, the same view. But this time you're not watching for auroras. You're just a present. The grandmother finds you there, sits beside you. She offers no greetings, no glances. Just passes you a piece of dried meat and chews her own slowly, staring out over the endless white. Then she says, you're ready. You look at hers. For what? She shrugs for anything, for leaving, for staying, for teaching, for vanishing. Same readiness either way. You chew your meat slowly. She continues. But if you're going to stay, you need to offer something. You nod like what? The story. You raise your eyebrows. Haven't I already told one? She shakes her head. That was a journey. Now you need to offer a story, something the land can keep even when you're asleep. She hands you a piece of driftwood. Blank. Carved smooth by water and time. You hold it like a question. And she says, make it a map, but don't tell anyone what it's for. Let them guess. Let them listen. And then she walks away. Just like that. Like the snow taught her how to leave without sound. You sit with the wood for days. Not carving. Not planning. Just holding. Sometimes in the morning light, when the children are still sleepy-eyed and the fires haven't started. Sometimes at night, under a sky full of stars that blink like they know the end of your sentence before you begin it. People ask what you're making. You say nothing. Which is its own kind of answer. The wood begins to change in your hands. Not physically. Spiritually. As it becomes heavier, more personal, you start seeing shapes in the grain, curves that echo the memory circle. A knot that looks like the mouth of a sleeping seal. A dent that reminds you of a footprint too old to follow. Then one day you begins. The knife moves slowly. You don't draw plans, you don't aim for beauties. You just remove what doesn't belong. It takes 3 days, maybe 4, you lose track. When it's done, the carving doesn't look like anything in particular. And yet, somehow, it looks like everything. The swirl, a bend, a hollow. Somewhere between map and lullaby. Somewhere between memory and snow. You wrap it in hide and leave it at the edge of the village. No note. No claim. No name. Just a driftwood. Returned. Major historical fact. Carved offerings, especially those made of driftwood, were left as silent maps for those not yet born. Their purpose was not to instruct but to attract. A carved spiral might pull a curious child to ask, "What is this?" And that question was the true gift. The weird cultural tidbit, it was believed that the best carvings didn't survive. They disappeared into snowstorms or were taken by ravens or buried in melting ice. The ones that stayed too long had forgotten how to travel. The next morning, your carving is gone. No one speaks of it. No one returns it. You smile. Because that means it worked. That means someone, not now but later, will find it. And when they do, they'll touch its curves and wonder. And wonder, real, open, quiet wonder, is the only story that doesn't need to be told twice. You sit down beside the grandmother that evening. You don't say a word. She passes you tea. And this time, for the first time, she asks, "Well, what did it say back to you?" You look toward the wind, and you whisper, "Oh, it said, I've been waiting for you to listen." And she, without smiling, simply nods. Oh, because now she can finally rest. The days stretch gently now. Not long, not short, just even, like the land has found a rhythm and is teaching you to walk in it. You wake without hurry, sleep without searching, speak only when the words feel shaped by the snow. Though the grandmother speaks less now, which is not to say she says nothing. She says just enough. She teaches not with lessons but with presence. If she hums while she sharpens a blade, you hum too. If she folds fish skin a certain way before drying it, you copy the motion, not because you're told to, but because it's the only thing that makes sense. The one morning she hands you a pair of boot soles. The seal hide thick, cut perfectly for your feet. "Oh, yours," she says. You blink. "I thought I was still wearing borrowed ones." She shrugs, "Now you're not." Major historical fact. In Inuit culture, the gift of custom footwear wasn't just practical, it was a sign of integration. You didn't truly belong until your boots matched the snow you walked on. It meant, we trust that your steps won't wander where they shouldn't. The weird cultural tidbit. The soles were often cut slightly imperfectly on purpose. A superstition said that perfectly symmetrical boots could confuse the spirits of the ground, who might mistake you for a shadow and follow you home. One stitch out of place meant you were real. You wear them that day, even though your old pair still works. And they feel like memory. They squeak in the snow a little, not in a clumsy way, just new, like they're learning the rhythm of your walk. You don't leave the village much anymore. You don't need to. There's enough to learn here. You begin helping the younger children with their knots, their first carvings, their shadow games. They trust you not because you explain things, but because you never laugh when they don't understand. You just show them again. One night a child asks, what if the snow forgets me? You smile. It won't. But what if I get too loud? You pause. Then say, then I'll remind it. That night the grandmother speaks as you sit beside her fire. She doesn't look at you. She looks at the flames. And then says, almost offhand, my grandmother walked farther than I ever did. You nod quietly. And she saw the sea before it broke. Another pause. And she never told me what she left there. You watch the fire flicker orange and gold. Why not, you ask? The grandmother shrugs. She said it wasn't her story anymore. She pokes the fire with a stick, sending up a small burst of sparks. Then, without looking at you, when it's time, I'll stop talking too. And you understand. That silence is how the elders hand it over. Not with ceremony, but with space. Although weather shifts again, not in drama, but in the tone. The sky grows slightly heavier, as if it's beginning to think about snow again. The light bends earlier in the day, shadows stretch longer, people speak in softer voices. Even the dogs nap closer to the tents now, their paws twitching with the dreams of younger seasons. One morning you wake and she is not in her usual spot. No kettle boiling, no humming, no sweeping the step with her cedar broom. You panic, but only for a moment. Then you see the footprints. One said, "That's low," leading out toward the ice ridge. You follow. Love, of course you do. She's sitting at the edge of the land, legs stretched in front of her, hands folded in her lap. She doesn't turn when you approach. You sit beside her. And for a long while, neither of you speak. The view is familiar, white, endless, but now it carries something else. A closure. Not as an end, but as a bend in the trails. She finally says, "Do you know what I asked the snow the first time I walked here?" You shake your head. She smiles softly. "I asked it if it was lonely." You look at hers. "And what did it say?" She finally looks back at you. "It said, no, I'm just waiting for someone who listens." Major historical fact: among the Inuit, storytelling wasn't a role, it was a rotation. One did not declare themselves a storyteller. One simply became it when others stopped speaking. The passing of the tale wasn't done in rituals, it happened in pauses. Weird cultural tidbit. In some households, when an elder felt their final story had been told, they would gift their last tool not to the strongest child but to the quietest listener. Because that was the one who had already started remembering. The grandmother pulls something from her pocket. It's a needle. A bone worn smooth. "I used this the year my daughter was born," she says. "She's gone now," you whisper. She nods, yes, but her thread is still here. She presses it into your hand. And your fingers curl around it like they already know what to do. She stands slowly, not weakly, gently, like someone stepping off stage after the final verse. You follow her back. And that night, as she sips her broth by the fire, she finally says, "I'm going to stop telling stories tomorrow." You look at her. Wise. She smiles because you're going to start. The silence after those words is the loudest thing you've ever heard. Not empty, but inviting. Like the wind holding its breaths. For what comes next? The next morning arrives like a whisper. The light doesn't break, it lanes. You rise slowly, stretching in the way people do when their bones are full of sleep and silence. Outside, the snow glows silver. Not because of the sun, but because the sky has decided for now not to cover it. So she's already awake. And of course she is. She's sitting in the same spot by the stove, wrapping something in cloth, her hands slower now, careful, like she's tying up the last chapter of a book written entirely in warmth and winter. While you sit beside her, no greetings, just a presence. She hands you a small pouch, no explanation. You open it, and inside is a single sealed tooth, a needle, a twist of dried sinew, and a flake of salt. You look at her waitings. She says, for mending things you can't see. Then she leans back and says nothing else. You don't ask questions. You've learned better than that. And instead, you fold the pouch and place it in your coat. The children are waiting by the edge of the village. The girl with frost in her braids asks, "Are you going to tell us one?" You nod if you help me light the fires. And so they do. You all sit in a circle, not perfectly round, but round enough. One boy brings the carving you left weeks ago. He says it washed up by the fish racks. He doesn't know it's yours, but he says it smells like distance. You begin speaking, not loudly, just clearly. You tell them about the memory circle, the storm that erased everything except what it meant. You tell them about the stone that was warm in your pocket before you knew why. You tell them about the sky moving, and how you didn't run. The children listen. The village listens. Even the snow, you think, listens. Because the grandmother is standing at the edge of the group. Not seated. Not correcting. Just watching. And when your voice catches, when the sentence becomes too heavy to finish, she says only, breathe in. And you do. And the words return like snowflakes that were always meant to land. Major historical fact, elders didn't decide when a person became a storyteller. The village did when others gathered without needing to be called, when the stories were met with stillness, when the wind stopped to listen. That was the sign. Weird cultural tidbit. The first time a new storyteller spoke, an elder would leave the fire and walk away not far, just out of earshot, so the story could echo in the air without the weight of being watched. It was the final gift, space to become. And so, as your story ends, the grandmother walks quietly to the edge of the hill. She kneels, presses her palm to the snow, and says something only the ground can hear. Then she walks inside, and you keep it talking. Not because you know what to say next, but because the silence has given you permission. And it sounds like home. To be read slowly, like footprints fading behind you in fresh snow. And now the snow is still again. You're not walking anymore. not climbing or carving or holding your breath in a storm. You're sitting somewhere warm, wrapped in the memory of cold that didn't conquer you. The fire has burned down to its softest coals. The last light of the day stretches across the floor like a dog curling up to sleep. And you feel it now, that quiet weight in your chest. No, not heaviness, but a presence. You remember the grandmother's voice, not loud, not certain, just steady, her laughter like cedar smoke, her footsteps that never hurried, never wasted, her stories that didn't begin with once upon a time, but with a glance, a hum, a handed-down object you didn't know you needed. You remember how the snow didn't just fall, it watched. How the wind wasn't cruel, it tested. And how the silence cared. Because in this world, silence isn't absence. It's attention. It's the grandmother's last needle. It's the circle of stones no one points to. It's the song only the fire knows. So close your eyes now. Let the weight of the story press gently on your chest, like a soft hand resting there. You're not asked to remember every detail, only to carry the feeling. And when you walk again, tomorrow, next week, years from now, you'll hear the crunch of snow under your feet and you'll know. You were taught how to listen when everything else went quiet. And that will be enough. That will always be enough. Good night. And may the snow know your name.